September was quite the month. I had my best read of the year, potentially my worst read of the year. I had my worst reading month of the year in terms of how many books I was able to read. As work got a little hectic and I got a little bit distracted with the NFL, I may or may not be watching some now. You may notice my eyes flicking across to the side of the camera where there's a game going on. But for the most part, we had a very wide range of books across these 7. We had a 2, we had a 3.5, we had a 3.75, we had a 4, 4.5, 5. So like we covered a large variety of things in this month, despite it being the fewest books I've read in a month all this year. So we're going to dive into it from the best to the worst. Make sure you comment down below. Let me know what you read in September. What was the best book you read in September? What was the worst book you read in September? And what's one thing that can distract you from reading? Mine is NFL. Seeing Mason Rudolph look better than Will Levis for the Titans is a weird one. And while you're down there commenting, make sure you like the video and subscribe. It helps. You want to see more bookish videos, join the community. So we started off the month with book 3 of the Gael song Saga, The Land of the Living and the Dead. Now this one is a trilogy I've been working through for the last 2 months, starting off with The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. And I just did a video on 3 historical fiction series where I go over this series in more detail. But this is a historical fiction set in late 10th, early 11th century Ireland, following a bunch of Irish and Viking kings vying for power across Ireland. But this is more a character-driven story where we're following 2 ladies from 2 different magical races that are complete opposites. We've got a scheming, diabolical, I'll do anything to get what I need to look after myself and my own. And we've got one lady who's just the kindest, most sweetest, most purest, loving person that you can come across. And Shauna makes you fall in love with both of these characters and you want both to do so well, and then being on opposite sides, you know that's not going to happen. And by the time you get to book 3 in this trilogy, which just came out in September, you feel like you've been edging for 2 whole books. There's just been things building and building. You haven't had any big battles or any big payoff between our characters or between the kings in this series. Things just have continuously been building. We've had time jumps, we've jumped through time, a lot of things have gone down, but nothing big. So when you get to the Land of the Living Dead, you've got 2 massively compelling characters that you're super sold into. You're feeling like, all right, something has to be coming. Something has to be coming. And then you get the last 25% of the Land of the Living and the Dead, and you just get absolute chaos for a full 125 pages. Just war, battle, death, unhinged character interactions. I still can't really comprehend the amount of stuff that went down there. And overall, this book left me very unsatisfied and very disappointed because I loved the first 2 books in this series dearly. The character work was phenomenal. The story, super engaging because of how much you like the characters. And the action and history was very fun. And it was just a small part of the tale that just kept it engaging enough. But in book 3, that last 25%, I felt like too much happened. That wasn't really built up in the previous books. So some of the things just felt a little bit out of left field. And then this being a trilogy, I thought we'd get a lot more wrapped up, but a lot of the story and the characters were left very open-ended as Shauna's working on more books to come after this trilogy. So I'm a little bit disappointed with this one. I was expecting a nice wrapped up story. Now I know Shauna's working on more books. I'm a little bit more positive on it, as I know there's more I'm going to be able to read in this world, and Shauna's a fantastic author, but a little bit disappointed that there was just too many open ends. I feel like that could have been done better. And maybe when you go into this, you should just know that there's going to be something after this. And the next book I went into was our book club book, another historical fiction, Essex Dogs by Dan Jones. Also covered this series in my historical fiction video, so we'll just go through it quickly. I read this one a 3.5 out of 5. Dan is a fantastic writer. He's really good at his history. And this feels like one of those books where you're hanging out with the boys. You're with the war band. You're with the English army. You're marching through France, going through different towns, doing all that war stuff and just tearing up the countryside. And for the most part, this is really well done. Just, there was nothing that was able to pull both me and most of the people I read this with in the book club to pull us into a deeper level. Their characters were just, they were good, but they weren't engaging enough, that we weren't invested enough in their story, because they're just there to pick up their money. They're just mercenaries. So they're just picking up their money, so we're not connected on a deeper level. There were a few times where we had a few characters where we were able to get into their story a bit more and spend a bit more time with them, and they felt really engaging. But for the most part, the story was just marching through France, so there wasn't enough to pull me into it. Yes, there were some fun little battles and things like that that were engaging, but nothing big that really drew me in. Like, I was just, yeah, we're on this purpose. So it was really cool to get that on the ground feeling of war in France. But this isn't a series where I'm dying to read the next book. I will go on, but I won't go straight into it. So coming off of that, I hit a bit of a slump with my reading. My work level picked up a little bit, and I just couldn't find something to pull me in. So I needed something that was short and fast paced that I could finish off, get some momentum, and then just get back reading. And one of my friends, Masha, did a video on TikTok going through her 3 favorite novellas, and I just dove into one of those. So I read The Lies of Ajungo by Moses Osei Atomi. And that pronunciation will be completely wrong. I'm sorry, Moses. This is a story that kind of reminded me of The Alchemist, where it's a little bit like a parable where we're reading the fantasy story and the story is really focused on the messages and the morals and getting you thinking rather than focusing on a big fleshed out world where everything makes sense. We're more so looking at this story to look at how we hold our beliefs, how we communicate and gather information. This is a book to get you thinking and to spread a message. And I think Moses does a great job there. And this novella is part of a trilogy, so I will continue on with these books. And if you're looking for something short, easy to read, but leaves you with some room to do some extra thinking, I would recommend this book. And I won't say much on the plot because there's not too much of it and I don't want to ruin it for you. Following a teenage boy from a desert culture and on his journey to try and be a hero for his people, and he learns that not everything is as he was taught. Things are different. The people in charge may not have his or his people's best interest at heart, and he strives out to make some changes. And that's all I'll tell you about that one. Talking to you guys is thirsty work. I need a break every once in a while. It's tough staying on camera, you know? So then after The Lies of Ajungo, I went into my best book of the month and potentially my entire year. Absolute 6 out of 5. That was Assassin's Quest, Book 3 of the Farseer Trilogy, Book 3 of Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. You guys have seen my previous 2 reviews for Assassin's Apprentice and Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest did not disappoint. This is a divisive book for the fan base. Some people say it's too long and drawn out and not enough happens in the middle to warrant the book being like a 38-hour audiobook. And I completely disagree with those people. I think they're absolutely wrong. And I know a lot of you that are watching would have read Assassin's Quest and will completely disagree with me. That's okay. It's all right if you're bored, if you got bored by it. But for me, I absolutely love Fitz as a character. Robin Hobb is able to put me in his head better than any other author can put me in any other character's head. So I completely empathize and understand Fitz to a level that I haven't any other character I've come across, except maybe like Gabrielle de Leon in The Empire of the Vampire, which you know is one of my favorite books of all time. Because I have this deep connection to Fitz, I found I was engaged every single page of this series. So although the plot of the story might not be developing, Fitz as a person is developing and growing, and I'm 100% there for every moment of his growth and development. So I was able to connect to every chapter, and I found even though the bigger story of the series might not have been moving forwards much during this book, during the middle part, and that the big wrap up at the ending where all the big things that have been playing out throughout the series get wrapped up very quickly, I wasn't bothered by that because I'm in this story for Fitz. I want to know how all the little things affect Fitz and how he grows as a person and develops from those events. So I don't mind that these books aren't fast paced because I found I was gripped to every minute. How is Fitz going to find this? How is he going to react to this? How is he going to learn? How is he going to grow? When is he going to learn? When is he going to get the right idea in his head? Because Fitz is flawed. And being invested in Fitz means that you are going to be annoyed a lot because he's not always going to make the right decision. And you're just holding out, waiting for Fitz to do something right. And that's why I love Assassin's Quest so much. Because yes, this story is fantastic and the plot as a whole that takes place over the Farseer Trilogy is really fun and engaging and interesting. And all the side characters are fantastic, well drawn out. The politics is really well done and you're engaged with the politics, the action and everything. But Fitz is the heart of the story. If you can't connect to Fitz, you will struggle with the Farseer Trilogy. But if you do connect to Fitz, you're going to love every single minute of it, just like I did. And alongside that, Robin Hobb does twists and pulls out the unexpected better than any author I've come across, Sanderson included. I constantly found myself just thinking, how has she done it again? I just Did not see that coming. I'm completely surprised. And because she's done that so many times in the books, I was like, what's the next thing that's going to be crowd? What's the next thing that's going to be wild? What's the next thing that's going to be unhinged and just going to blow my mind? And she does it well. It all has great payoff. It all makes sense. And I just can't wait to dive further into Realm of the Elderlings after reading Assassin's Quest. But after directly finishing one of my favorite reads of all time, I had just one of the most lackluster reads of all time. And that was The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson Bennett. And this one had all the potential in the world to be a great book. We've got a haunted house on this out of the way town. We've got a sciencey professor type that is trying to prove that things can be haunted, and he look into ghosts and that sort of stuff. And he's put together a group of people to spend time in this haunted house to try and figure it out. And that first part of the book felt super engaging. I read this book because Stephen King mentions it as an inspiration for Salem's Lot. And the first part of the book does remind me a lot of Salem's Lot. I can see connections. The characters felt really good. The house felt creepy, and I was all there for it. But nothing else really happened, and I felt the story just didn't go anywhere after a really good build-up. So I gave this a 2 out of 5. I was thoroughly disappointed, and I just wouldn't recommend this book, really. Like, I thought it was going to be great, but it just felt lackluster in the end. But luckily, after The Haunting of Hill House, I still had 2 books to go for the month, which were absolutely fantastic. So we had the audiobook, The Gates of the Feral Gods, book 4 of Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. And I wasn't expecting this series to take another step up in its quality. The level of political intrigue that had been continuing to grow from books 1 to book 3 just took a sharp increase. I didn't think we could get more, but we got like 2-3 times more. And it looks like it's only going to get more wild and unhinged in book 5. The character dynamics continue just to be the highlight of the book. The chemistry between Carl and Donut is absolutely phenomenal. The only other 2 characters with the same chemistry were in the next book I read this month. And I'm 100% certain that just most people need to check out Dungeon Crawler Carl. You get a character from our world and our time that you're going to be able to deeply relate to. You get a plot of the 18 level dungeons and trying to survive them that is very straightforward and always moving forwards. So the story is always progressing in that sense. Then you get the larger story of Carl trying to fight back against the game makers and all the politics that go along with the game, with the people running it, with the people trying to stop it from being run, and all the different companies and corporations buying for more money and power. So alongside having very easy characters to connect to, a very engaging plot that's constantly moving forwards, a deeper plot that's really politically driven, you get fantastic dialogue and character interactions, a super fun and creative world that just takes you, that just transports you into some place that you could not imagine without going into these books. Just so weird and wacky, but engaging and deep on so many levels. And this, whether you read it or listen to it, the audiobooks are phenomenal. They aren't overhyped. Everyone that says you have to do this in audio, they're not wrong. The audiobooks are fantastic, but these are also very easy to read. I've done the first 2 on physical reads. I've done the last 2 on audio. And whichever way you do it, you're going to have a great time. Don't let the people that say, oh, you have to do an audio get in the way of you reading this book. These are fantastic reads, and they are super enjoyable on the books. Yes, the accents are great, but guys, when you make recommendations, don't be off-putting. Don't say you have to just do the audio, because you might be getting in the way of someone having an enjoyable story. Whatever way you do it, you will have a great time with Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now, last but very not least, we have The Night of the Seven Kingdoms by George R.R. Martin. And I am so chuffed that I read this. I had a fantastic time. I've had this on my shelf for such a long time, and I've been looking for an excuse to read it. And I saw that my friend Ashley was reading it, so I gave her a bell and we buddy read this one together. And anytime I read one of George's books, I'm just reminded how good of an author he is. This one feels very different to A Song of Ice and Fire. It felt very refreshing. Like, the stakes just felt a little bit lower. We get to see Westeros at a time where there's no war. There's still a ton of political drama kind of in the background of this book, and there's a country that's not exactly at peace. There's lingering divisiveness, but overall, things feel a bit calmer. We get 2 characters that just have elite chemistry in Dunk and Egg, and I have gone arse over tit for this character dynamic. The chemistry between these 2 characters is on par with Carl and Donut and Gabriel and Dior, which are my 2 other favorite character duos of all time. The back and forth dialogue between these two is absolutely fantastic. We get 3 short stories of them hanging out, and it just felt really fun, refreshing. If you're looking for some fun, light, refreshing reads, I would use these 3 short stories at separate times to just give you a breath of fresh air with something lighter, but also has that sense of realness lying underneath. So I couldn't recommend this book highly enough. So happy I read it. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you let me know what was the best thing you read in September. What are you excited to be reading in October? And just thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.